Ray's Latino Talk Podcast, Latino Talk that informs, inspires, and entertains, because immense greatness awaits. Thank you so much for joining us. This is your host, Rafael Ray Collazo, and on today's Ray's Podcast, real special occasion, because this is actually what you're going to hear on this podcast. This episode of Ray's Latino Talk Podcast is actually a speech, a presentation, some words I just gave to a group of young high school students just hours ago, actually. I was honored today, the day I'm taping this episode of Ray's Podcast, to have been the keynote speaker for Hispanic Heritage Month at a very special place, St. Joseph's Preparatory School, which is a high school in my hometown of Philadelphia, which has a wonderful tradition. It's actually my rival high school, which is sort of ironic. My dear compadre, Cesar Santiago's alma mater, some great people who went there, and have a few great people there at that school now, which I'll mention in a second. But it was a wonderful experience to be the keynote speaker at their Hispanic Heritage Month festivities today. I want to thank Jose Gonzalez, a dear friend of the podcast, who's a staffer at that school and counsels the young people that go to that fine institution. And it was also special because one of my nephews, a member of the family, Marcus Collazo, is a first-year student there. Freshman is not so PC anymore. So a first-year student, and it was nice to spend some time with him and be able to share some words of wisdom and some humble advice from myself at this presentation. And it was interesting because when I initially spoke to Jose about speaking at the school, he very much wanted me to focus my comments on my career in political organizing and sort of the tricks of the trade as it relates to a career in activism. And I did touch on that, but I focused my remarks in the beginning of the conversation on sort of this concept that you have when you're about to turn 40, and I'm turning 40 in about 33 days from the day I'm taping this episode. And, you have these conversations we can get in this part of your life, right, where you talk about things like, well, if I knew then what I know now, oh, man, I would have been more confident in myself. I would have been smarter about managing my money. I would have had a little more swag when it came to the ladies, all kinds of things. And so as I was thinking about what I wanted to share with these young people, especially these young men, it's actually an all-boys Catholic high school, I came back to the concept that I wanted to help them cut in line, if you will, and give them some words of advice and let them think about some traits in their life they should be following and some life philosophies. And I kept coming back to, let's discuss some of the things that I wish I knew at that age and help them cut the line. So the theme of my presentation and my comments you're going to hear in a second here on Ray's Latino Talk Podcast, Latino Talk that informs, inspires, and entertains, was 5 traits specifically that'll help you cut the line in life by 25 years. So the things that would be great to know now as a teenager and really at any age that'll help you overcome anxiety, overcome some of the bumps in the road that we often have when we just don't know, when we kind of are banging our head against the wall and looking for some guidance, looking for another way. So I wanted to give these young fellas some of that guidance. And so let's listen to this chat that I had with some fine young men at St. Joseph Preparatory School in Philadelphia, North Philadelphia, earlier today, which I think we can all learn from. And then we'll get back to, you'll hear from me as we outro the show, some announcements, some things coming up, which I wanted to share. Some exciting news here at Ray's Latino Talk Podcast. So let's listen to my remarks earlier today to some high school students at St. Joseph Prep High School in North Philadelphia.
Our career speaker series, we usually do this at least once during the fall, and during February we do it 2 or 3 times. Actually today is even more special because I found out Mr. Collazo here is a Roman Catholic. Right?
Absolutely.
And so I love that.
I know. Let's see how long I'll last in here.
I love that because
Roman Catholic.
That's the theme right there. We all do the same thing. We are all trying to educate young men in the Christian Catholic faith. And so that's the important thing. I think sometimes we get caught up in the competition. We forget about what the real competition is, to serve and to receive those gifts that God has blessed us with. So I'm glad that he is here. He is also the uncle of this young man who was a freshman. So it's another special moment, first for that as well. So I'm going to shut up and let him take over at this time and let him do what he does and introduce himself and about what he's been up to in his career in that path that brought him to today. All right, so let's give him a warm welcome.
Thank you, guys. Yes, I'm a Roman Catholic guy, so be kind. But I know you got my back. And I was actually sharing before we started that a very good friend of mine, one of my real good friends, Cesar Santiago, who Jose knows, actually is a prep man, and actually I think was the person a long time ago that introduced me to Jose and his family. So it's a small world. I definitely, to the extent you guys want me to get into my career stuff, I certainly can do that. But I wanted to, and I do want to touch on immigration reform, which is an issue that Jose had asked me to touch on, and one of the issues we're working on nationally and locally. But I actually just wanted to kind of pass on some lessons, if you don't mind, and some thoughts about being in that chair 25 years ago as I was, and people like Jose were. So if that's okay with you, I want to kind of just talk to you about a few things, and then to the extent we want to delve into political organizing and that career stuff, and I'd be more than happy to dive into that. I can talk about politics all day. I can talk about a lot of things all day, frankly. But I did want to speak on, again, if you'll indulge me, I want to help you cut in front of the line, because one of the things that when you get to the stage in life I am with myself, Jose, and we also compete because our children compete in soccer together on the weekend. So there's a couple rivalries here that Jose and I often discuss is, wow, if we only knew then what we knew now. Or if we only knew then what we knew now, right? So if we had only had some of these lessons and someone had given us this path, what we could have done and taken advantage of, and life would have been a little clearer at this stage when we were in these chairs. So what I want to do is help you. I have a few remarks on thinking about and rethinking about maybe in another way that you haven't thought about in a while, and what the great instruction you get here every day and guidance from people like Jose is how you can kind of cut in front of the line of life. And so just some thoughts about it, if you indulge me, and then we'll get into a little bit about immigration, why it's important for all of us, and then we'll get into whatever questions you want to get into. We can talk politics, the career stuff, Philly, Eagles, whatever you want to talk about. So the first thing I thought about when I was thinking about talking to you guys today, and really what's a couple lessons in a path I can give them to think about how to kind of cut the line in life, if you will. And the word that came to mind was embrace. And so the things I want to talk about briefly are not just things you want to think about and have in the back of your mind, but I really want you to embrace them and own them, because they're sort of foundations to the life you want to live that's going to give you the platform ultimately you need to service as many people as possible. Because I was raised in Catholic schools my whole life, and the one thing I got out of it, which was this is about servicing others, serving leadership. And that's a very powerful phrase, which I know is a big part of the St. Joe's Prep philosophy and mission, and one that I've actually transferred into my political organizing life and transferred into the next phase of my life, which I'll touch on at the end, but some new business ventures that I've stepped into, which I believe is the next step in my personal journey to service as many people as possible. So I need you to think about how you really think about and consider strongly embracing these principles. And the first one I want to talk about is gratefulness. And so I'm sure on some level you feel like you're beat over the head with this concept. Oh, you don't realize how lucky you are. But I just want to reiterate it again. Everyone in this room, including myself, was very, very fortunate for the educational opportunities that we've been given. And so I just want you to really embrace this concept of gratefulness, because it's one thing to say, yeah, I should be grateful, and look at all the people that don't get to go to schools like this and who don't have the family structure I have, or the stability in my life, or the talents I have, or the intelligence I have. But I really want you to really own gratefulness, because you're really going to need in your life when things aren't feeling so smooth and easy, when you feel like you have challenges, when you fail. And that's another word I want you to think about and on some level embrace in this conversation in your life path. And Jose, I can tell you, we fail every day. And if we didn't fail until we got home, we certainly figure out there's always frustrations as a parent, like, wow, I could be doing more, and other things in your family life. So on some level, you always kind of feel like you're having challenges, even when others see you as thriving. So you can only truly overcome those challenges, move forward, unless you embrace gratefulness. Because within gratefulness, you'll understand that this challenge you were given is a blessing. Because there will be, at some point, most likely soon after, you'll see the reason that challenge is put in front of you. It'll make you stronger. It'll teach you a lesson that you needed. It'll steer you in a whole other direction. I lost an election the one time I ran for office myself 10 years ago by 125 votes. And so most people saw, when I share that with people, they feel really sorry for me. And they're like, wow, that must have really stunk. And I'm like, yeah, on some level it did. But if I had won that election, I would have serviced the community much smaller than I've been able to on a national level since then in the organizing work I've done from coast to coast. So I went from running in an election where I would have represented 60,000 people to 2 years after that, organizing a field operation with 13 offices around the country in 7 states, managing, hundreds of employees and servicing hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. So to give you a sense of that failure and that challenge and that disappointment was actually an incredible blessing because it led to other opportunities where I could service more people and utilize my talents in that way. So you have to embrace gratefulness in this journey. And, quite honestly, you go through a lot of emotions with that because you don't want, people ain't going to feel sorry for you because people do see you as fortunate. And so there's nothing wrong with going through struggles. A lot of times because we're the guys and we're the ones at the fancy school and you're seen as leaders or as already sort of people that are already getting looked up to even at your young age, you feel guilty for feeling bad. And it's okay. We're going to have our struggles, but when you go back to being grateful, the understanding of the power of gratefulness, you realize that these struggles are all coming for a reason, and you do embrace them. I need you to embrace boundless possibilities. And so one of the things one of my big geek things that I look forward to every spring is when Time Magazine comes out with their 100 most important, influential people in the world. I just like the whole thing. I feel like one of my dreams to actually be in that magazine edition one day. And the way they set it up and how they discuss the lessons of some of the most influential people in our world and our society. And so what's really interesting is that the way they categorize it is that they have different categories for artists and people in different genres. But what they call the titans are like the elite 8 to 10. The ones that really have the global impact, the Bill Gates, the Oprahs, the Pope Francis. And so if you study those kinds of people, one of the things that often comes up is that at some point in their life, they were perceived as the crazy one. Because they actually felt they could actually achieve their dreams. And so I want to share with you guys, and you're in a great opportunity to be very ambitious in your career goals and your personal goals with the education foundation that you have here. But even amongst the successful people, even amongst people that Jose and I associate with on a regular basis, even those that we perceive as made it, have so much more to give and have a nagging notion in their heart that they got another gear here. They have a lot more to give, and they have a few steps up to have a larger platform to service more people and maximize their talents and service their talents. And then so on some level, that can be very challenging because almost very few people around you, even strong, supportive people that care about you, are really going to believe that. I mean, could you imagine? Think about it from a biblical perspective. I always go back to John the Baptist. If I walked in here now and told Jose, hey Jose, our Lord and Savior is around the corner. He's coming. He's going to be here in a second. How would Jose most likely react? He might entertain me for a second, but ultimately he may not believe it. And in larger society, I probably would be ostracized. Well, that was John the Baptist. He ended up being one of the most important biblical and figures of literature in world history. But when he was living, the kind of leadership he was showing, and the vision he had, and what he believed was the truth was ridiculed, and ultimately cost him his life. So it's very important that you sort of own that you really can do anything. And I'm not asking you to make stuff up. All I'm asking you to do is really own the dreams you already have, because you have them for a reason. It's the biggest. If you get one thing out of the conversation, you have these crazy dreams. I'm going to think you're crazy. You think you're crazy. You're going to spend half your time trying to convince yourself those dreams can't happen, when in fact, all I'm asking you to do is go after dreams that are already in your heart, and you already have the talents and ability to do. So really embrace the concept of balanced possibilities. Leadership is something, and I know St. Joe's Prep really does a great job with talking about and instructing you guys on the concept of servant leadership, supporting each other, mentorship. Leadership comes with a lot of responsibility, and it's not something that you apply for. I know some of you saw that Chavez movie. People like Martin Luther King, they didn't apply to their iconic civil rights figures by putting an application on monster.com. They embrace being grateful and understanding that they have been given a lot and that they have a lot of responsibility to service their community. They embrace boundless possibilities. I mean, does civil rights movement teach us anything other than look what's possible when we service each other, do the right thing, work together, and are selfless? And so all of you are already leaders, you don't even realize it. You probably are even old enough to have aunts and uncles and relatives ask you, hey, can you talk to your little cousin? Can you talk to your young brother and sister? That's going to continue to happen because of the path and the positive direction you're already going on in your life. And so I don't want you to own leadership because, well, I'm a somebody because I'm going to go to school and I'm going to go to work in a suit and tie. Image is a little part of leadership, I guess. And leadership isn't about being a public figure. Leadership isn't about a title. Leadership is about financial success. Leadership ultimately is about being acknowledging and embracing and grateful for what you have, understanding the responsibility you have in servicing others, and understanding that you have a responsibility not only to go on your journey, as crazy as it sounds, as boundless as it sounds to somebody, but only can the rest of us progress if you go for those dreams, okay? Because that's going to open doors for other people. So leadership, and some of you you're going to get into lots of different areas of life and lots of different professions. Very few of you will probably get into my path, in my case, which is political organizing at the moment. But that doesn't mean you all can't provide leadership for your community and really embrace that piece and the responsibility that comes with it. Day one is today. I'm really, and again, when I'll share with you very candidly about my life, is that, I was around the same age, and I was breaking bread with him the other day, and I shared with him, I said, one of my personal challenge right now is I'm at a stage in life where I should be most people have kind of forgotten about their dreams. I got small children, me and my wife have stable careers, we got mortgage, we got bills to pay, we got kids to take the sports practices. And so now I'm in a position where my heart is actually, I've turned on 1 through 3, and I really am embracing the possibilities of things I can now do for the rest of my life, on a career, personal level. And that's real difficult when you get to my age. It's easy to be a dreamer at 15, 16. When you get to my age, and I'll be 40 in a few weeks, most of my friends, most people around me have let their dreams go away. And so I'm refusing to do that in my personal life. And that comes with a lot of, that's going to take a little gut, that's taking guts on my part every day. And some would say, well, it's almost kind of too late for the things you want to do. You've kind of passed that point in your life. But I'm embracing the idea that day one is today, and that I can move forward. And you have to have that. You have to embrace that concept because, first of all, you're going to have challenges. This is not an easy school. You can't coast through St. Joe's Prep. It's going to be very competitive to get into the next education opportunities you want to get into your life. The job market, the U.S. economy, I don't know if you got the memo, is not the strongest. Hopefully, the next 5 to 10 years will get a lot better for you guys, but you're going to have even more challenges getting to even where your parents gotten a little ahead of that. So it's going to seem like a long path. Well, if I have this dream over here, it's going to take a long time to get there. But if you embrace gratefulness and embrace the blessings of the failures and the challenges and the struggles, and you own that leadership, then you'll understand that today, what you can get accomplished today, is a step in that direction to ultimately where you want to be. And the last thing I wanted to share with you, and we'll get into the immigration stuff, is have a good time. I'd like to end it on a lighter note. I pride myself in having a blast in my life. I've traveled, I've done a lot of fun stuff in a lot of fun places, and not too many people that where I grew up in North Philly can say, I go to the White House twice a year for different events and consult the president on different issues. I've hung out several times at the Hollywood Hills and hung out with Hollywood celebrities. Vegas, Miami, New Orleans, I've had a darn good time. I got to watch my language. I've had a real good time, y'all. Party, had a good time. And so I say that not to show off, even though I do at times, but I say that to share with you that if you embrace these other qualities and are who you are, and just embrace that it's cool to be 100% of who you are every day, moment of your life, that positive energy, you're going to be so much more happier with yourself. And that positive energy is going to roll off. It's going to attract the kind of people you want to be around. It's going to make you even happier. And so Jose and I can share with you that in our careers, we've rubbed elbows with some extremely successful people, well-off people, visible people, some of the most beautiful people, and some of those folks are the most miserable because they're ultimately not embracing some of these qualities, and ultimately not really happy with themselves, and that they don't have the kind of support network and frankly the kind of good people that you guys have and many of us are blessed to have. So have a good time, enjoy yourself, live your life. I'm not sitting here, I'm not the one that's going to tell you, maybe Jose is, but I'm not the one that's going to tell you to just do the serious stuff all the time. You want to have a balanced life, and the happier you are, the better you're going to be at all this stuff, and you're going to attract the kind of people around you that you want to spend time with, because ultimately that's what it's about. Before we get to again, thank you so much, Jose Gonzalez and the staff and the students at St. Joe's Prep High School in Philadelphia, and of course my dear nephew Marcus Collazo for being in attendance. It was a fantastic time, some great young men, and they're doing some great work there at St. Joe's, and so many, an example of what you can do, how you can impact young people when you have a real community of people together. And so I want to thank all the folks at St. Joe's for their continued leadership with us young men. I want to thank you all for listening to Ray's Latino Talk Podcast, Latino Talk that informs, inspires, and entertains, because ultimately immense greatness awaits you, but you have to take that action and commit yourself to being 100% of who you are every day. What a blessing. Give yourself that blessing, y'all, to just be 100% of who you are every moment of your life. You won't regret it. There's no question about it. And again, I want to thank our friends at St. Joe's Prep for the opportunity to speak to those young men today. And I want to let people know what to expect coming up at Ray's Latino Talk Podcast. First of all, I've got a blog post coming out, and I wanted to give you a sneak peek. I'm actually I have written a pretty extensive blog about decision making. It's actually a guide for making your best decisions and being taking your decision making skills to the next level. It's something that we're literally deal with it constantly. Some much more difficult and challenging than others conversations, but ultimately decision making, you need to control decision making and use it as a tool for empowerment, not something that you run away from because it's scary and it's difficult. If it wasn't hard, you wouldn't have to really make a decision, right? So there's lots of tools there. And again, it's empowering. It's an empowerment tool, to empower yourself and others. And so you want to really work on it, be intentional about improving and focusing on your decision-making skills and capabilities. You have all the right, the right intentions and also the right instincts as it comes to decision-making. You just have to follow your heart. And there's some tools to the trade, and so it's a pretty extensive blog post. And after the blog is released, I'll have a podcast or two sort of delving into it with other experts on decision-making, so look out for that. There's still a buzz that Residente from Calle 13 was in the building and made an appearance at Ray's Latino Talk Podcast. If you didn't hear Residente on Ray's Latino Talk Podcast, where you been, y'all? Definitely check it out. Definitely check out the podcast that was released a few weeks ago. You can imagine the most popular episode of Ray's Latino Talk Podcast we've ever had. Big-time celebrity there, and Renee has a wonderful message, and I was actually talking to an elected official in the Bronx yesterday about the power that man has with impact he has on his fans, and really one of the great global thinkers as it relates to humanity and politics in Latin America and empowering young people. So definitely a special visit on Ray's podcast. And we have so many people lined up. I was on social media with some wonderful people that will be appearing very soon. People like Juana Bordas, one of the Latina thought leaders around leadership, personal development, someone that's mentored the Latino Talk podcast family all over the country. And Anika Raguenza, Anika, based in Colorado, who's a published author, has got a lot going on. And Juana has agreed to be on Ray's Latino Talk podcast very soon. Ralph Quintero, another the man who is the man behind the Happy podcast and has a great brand around happiness and a great communications and a business specialist, and he's agreed. And we're going to be taping that episode very soon. Lots of wonderful people coming up. Eva Mendes is making an appearance at Ray's Latino Talk podcast. I know that'll get people's attention, so you definitely want to check out when Eva Mendes is in the building very soon. Lots going on here, and as I finish this up, I want to let people also know that as I alluded to it in the intro of this episode of Ray's Latino Talk podcast, your host, Ray Collazo, is turning 40 pretty soon. Ooh. I'm turning 40. Oh God. Oh man, I'm hanging on to my 30s by the skin of my teeth. Indeed, I'll be turning 40 next month, and you know, I really want to take this as an opportunity to really sort of refocus and get us all focused. So I'll be starting a series in social media and additional blog posts, additional short podcasts. We're really going to make an effort to provide some additional information and have some themes around the conversation of sort of being reborn at 40. And I know that has a lot of connotations, but in this context, it's really not so much a spiritual, even though it is, a religious rebirth for me, but really an opportunity to understand that this is everything that's led to this moment in my life. 40 is not, I'm not running out of time. It really is a time for me to understand, and it should be for all of us, that day one is today of the next step. And this is really a time for me to reset and understand that I'm just now being prepared for the next greatest years where I can service the most people in the rest of this life. And it's I'm certainly not running out the clock. There's so much more to do and so many more people to serve, so many more messages, so much for me to grow. And so I want to take this opportunity. So I'm going to be reborn at 40. That's my personal philosophy. And sort of in this countdown, the next 4 or 5 weeks, we're gonna have conversations related to that with people that have gone through this experience and are maybe in a similar time in my life. So if you're around 40 or you're hitting a major milestone in your life, regardless of your age, and you're looking to sort of recharge, redirect your life, listen to the conversations we're going to have coming up at Ray's Latino Talk Podcast. As Big Brother Ray here, about to turn a big 4-0. Oh, goodness. Well, as Derek Jeter said, he was old for a baseball player, but now that he's retired, he's all of a sudden a very young man. So that's my attitude about it. Thank you so much for listening to Ray's Latino Talk Podcast. Again, you can catch this and all other archived episodes of Ray's Latino Talk Podcast at iTunes. And if you have an Android phone, say, Rafi, I don't have one of those iPhones, Bobby, those iPhone 6s. All your cousins and all your friends are into. I got an Android, a Galaxy, or any kind of smartphone. That's cool, Baba. Because you can check us out on the Stitcher app. There's several apps, TuneIn and some others, but we recommend primarily Stitcher. Check us out on the Stitcher app. We come up very prominently with Latino Talk, Ray's Podcast, whatever, any of those kind of buzzwords, keywords. And if you just like to listen to our website, that's totally fine. You can hear this and all of the archived episodes of Ray's Latino Talk Podcast on our website, rayspodcast.com. That's RAYS podcast.com. And don't forget about our Latino Sports Talk homies at latinosportstalk.com and Latino Sports Talk on iTunes and Stitcher. We're up to 2 days a week now on the Latino Sports Talk brand, so you have the episode that's taped on Friday nights with Jorge, the Dominican Barla Martinez, and the real George Lopez, which you can hear over the weekend. And on Wednesday nights, this week on Wednesday show, which features Remy Martin Gomez and Angel the Mad Mexican Hernandez Rivera, I love him, but he's a stinking Cowboy fan. And he's in a glory now. Cowboys are playing quite well. That offensive line and Romo and DeMarco Murray. As an Eagle fan, I hope that guy gets injured again, because that really is, he's really having a fantastic year, DeMarco. So support the rest of the network. Give us a positive review on iTunes. There's so much to do, and we definitely just want to extend this message. You have comments about everything going on here at Ray's Latino Talk Podcast, please check us out at rayspodcast.com. Leave comments there. You can also catch us on social media. On Twitter at Ray's Podcast. Continue the conversation about what you thought about our commentary today about cutting the line of life by 25 years. Some of the life advice I gave about embracing these concepts of gratefulness, leadership, boundless possibilities, understanding that today is the first day of the rest of your life. Today is day one of this journey. Use it to the fullest, no question about it. Keep the conversation going, and we'd love to hear from you directly. podcastrays@gmail.com. That's podcastrays@gmail.com. You may even want to discuss some life philosophy and take this conversation. Like, so we'll be on the show. We're totally open to that. Thank you so much for joining Ray's Podcast, and have a fantastic day.